Welcome inside this Tuesday Coaches Press Conference edition of Big Ten Live. I'm your host, Rick Pizzo. Week 1 is in the books, and as sad as it is to say goodbye to the opening weekend, the best thing about Week 1, it means there is so much football still to be played as Week 2 approaches. We'll look back on Week 1. We'll look ahead to Week 2 as we hear from coaches like Ryan Day, James Franklin, Mike Locksley. Some of those coaches are ranked inside the top 5, some inside the top 10, others trying to get inside the top 25. We'll bring you the new AP Top 25 poll when it is released in just a bit. But we start this edition of Big Ten Live in Columbus, Ohio State, and Ryan Day coming off that road win over Indiana on Saturday, getting set for a home date against Youngstown State this weekend in a game you can see right here on Big Ten Network. Here is OSU head man Ryan Day.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into like crazy details on it all, but I felt like they needed to play better in the run game. I think we were only 50% efficient overall on first and second down running the ball, so that's not good enough. They certainly did give us some things that maybe we weren't expecting, but even when they did, I didn't think we handled it as well as we could have. So getting back to work on that this week.
They got some good players on defense. How much do you attribute it to their D coordinator being here last year, kind of knowing you guys?
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, we there was times where that didn't play into account at all, and we got to execute better. It's just the bottom line. And I think what happens sometimes is when you get into preseason camp and you run plays and it goes on to the next period or the next drill, you don't quite feel the consequences of not executing at a high level. And that's what happened on Saturday, especially in the situational things. But we got off schedule in the run game, and we can't do that.
Fourth row middle, Tony Gertman, Buckeye Hubble.
Ryan, you guys had 10 possessions on Saturday, never less than 11 last year. I think you averaged around 13 last year. Just your level of concern there?
I don't know if it's a concern, but it is different. And I also felt like we were on the sideline a little bit more. It just seemed like the game moved slower for whatever reason, but it is what it is. We all have to deal with it. But like I said to the team, it means we have to be more and more efficient. And you might get less possessions in that first half, and so they got to count. And then when we get into halftime, we can't panic. We have to know that maybe we had one less possession, especially if we defer. And then we got to play really well in the second half. So if you're executing well and converting on third down and doing a good job in the red zone, it's not an issue. If you're not, then it is. But I think to your point, you have to be more and more on top of your execution, because I feel like even 5 years ago, we were getting, like you said, 12 and 13 possessions. You missed one here or there. Okay, we're going to get the ball back and have another opportunity. Not the case right now.
15 against Indiana last year. How do you just keep from chasing possessions?
Yeah. It's just a different feel. So we had 15 last year and 10 this year. Yeah, that's a lot of football. But it is what it is, and so we have to do a good job of executing early, because that's going to determine the outcome of the game probably more than in the past because of the new rule. So it doesn't matter when you're executing. So that's what we're going to focus on.
Right next door, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, you mentioned that I think it was media days that you wanted to make sure that you couldn't look down at your stat sheet and see that Marv wasn't getting the targets and whatnot. And I think he had 8 targets. I assume you included Mecca with that. How do you, other than just passes on target, not dropping balls, get them more involved in the offense going forward?
Yeah, I think it was 8 targets, and there was a couple other things that we had designed where maybe they took him away, which is going to happen, and that's where guys like Cade and Julian are going to have to step up, because that is going to happen this season. But we're going to continually find ways to be creative and try to get him the ball. I thought we did do that. We targeted him some. If we connect on a few of those and the touchdown and a few of those, you probably feel a little bit different coming out of the game. But again, with the number of plays, I think we threw it maybe 36 times in the game. He wasn't in the last drive. We're just going to have to really be on point. And I think that's probably the overall, sentiment right now, is that, you just got to make sure everything's really efficient, everything's really thought out. But teams are going to take him away too. So when that happens, that's part of where other guys got to step up. And And when we've been at our best, when we had weapons all over the place, other guys have stepped up so that they can't just take one guy away.
Right next door, Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now.
Coach, I assume when you sat down with Kyle, there's some feedback that you give him, and I assume you ask him for some self-assessment. How did he seem to feel about the way he performed?
Yeah, you just kind of ask, how do you feel? How did it go out there? And I think we both felt the same way. There was some good moments, some good throws, some other things that you wish you had back. When you look at first-time starters here in the past, I mean, that was probably similar. Would have liked to seen him get more snaps. Like to see Devin get more snaps in the game. That didn't happen just because the number of plays it just didn't quite get over 70. You'd like to get into that area, but I think that there was a lot of things to learn from, but also some good plays as well. So it was good enough to win in this game, which was the most important thing. And that's not just Kyle. It's the offense across the board. It won't be good enough moving forward to reach our goals.
On the defensive side, I mean, Sonny Styles played a lot, and it felt like he was in lots of different places on the field. How do you see his role evolving? Is he more of a defensive back? Is he more of a linebacker? Do you want him to be sort of a combo in that regard?
Yeah, you like to have him on the field a lot because he can do so many things. If you get to the point where he can't do one of the job responsibilities well enough, then that's when you have to sub in, either a nickel or a bigger guy. But when he can do, both of those things well, can cover, can blitz, can fit the run, then that gives you so much more flexibility and gives Jim the opportunity to now not have to do as much subbing. We do have really capable guys there. Cam Martinez and Cody Simon are ready to go, and so we'll use those guys. They're weapons for sure. But Sonny gives you that versatility.
Right in front of him, Andy Anders, 11 Warriors.
Yeah, it seemed like you guys threw out a lot of different formations, a lot of different tactics on the offensive side, whether it was the two-back stuff, whether it was 5 receivers with Xavier. At this point in the year, is it, I guess as the year progresses, I'm asking, is it going to be more of rolling through a lot of those things, or are you throwing a lot of different things out there to try and find an identity for the team?
Yeah, I think that, I think we have an idea of what our identity will be on offense, but at the same time, every year is different. We have multiple backs, we have multiple receivers. We know where we need to be as the season goes on. We have different quarterbacks this season. So, we want to look at different things and see where it goes. I think we learned some things on Saturday. So we'll start to go down different paths. But, having different groupings out there does bring a lot of benefit on offense. And so we'll keep looking at those things and, make sure that we're doing it. But ultimately, it comes down to execution. And if we're doing too many things, we can't execute them well enough, then, then we got to cut back.
Right in front of him, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Right, I think there were 2 situations where it was a 3rd and 2, and you ran it, and then you didn't get it, and then you throw it on the next play. The first time you get it, and the second time is the interception. Obviously, you're not going to give me the entire game plan here, but when you're in those situations, those 3rd and short situations, or even 4th and short situations, what goes into whether you're going to run it or you're going to pass it?
Well, I think both of those, again, not giving away too many things, but both of them were 3rd and 2 or a really long one. And I felt like, if you can get to 4th and 1, then you can run it again. But when you call it on 3rd and 2, when you get 0 both times, and now it's 4th and 2, which I believe it was at least a long one, you don't have a lot of confidence that you're going to get 2 yards. And that's really what it came down to.
So, I guess, why not just run the 4th down play on 3rd down, I guess, is what?
Well, we have to establish the run here, and we have got to get downhill. We got to move people, and we got to be physical. We can't be relying on the pass all the time. That's just not the way we're going to be here. So at some point, you got to get up there, draw a line in the sand, and say, we're going to move people. Now, didn't happen. So that's why we got to do a better job this week.
Second row right, Bill Landis, Rivals, the podcast.
Ryan, is your quarterback plan the same this week? Start Kyle and try to get Devin in if you can.
Yeah, yes, but try to get Devin in more. And as the week goes on, we'll continue to evaluate it based on how they practice. But yeah, I would have liked again to get Devin in the game, but like I mentioned after the game, I want to do what was best to win the game at the time. That was the first goal. I felt like that was the right thing to do. A little bit was gut, quite honestly. I can't sit here and tell you the analytics and the right way to do that, but this week would love to get Devin in some more.
So I guess I'm just trying to clarify maybe then the situation, because I think the impression going into Saturday might have been this competition is carrying into the season. We're going to let them both play, and sort of how they perform on the field in games is going to decide ultimately who is the starter long term. Is that not the case? Is it to Kyle is the starter, and you're going to try to play Devin when you can?
Yeah, I'm trying not to get, again, draw too many hard lines when it comes to this right now. Honestly, I talked to the guys about saying that, our goal is to be a really good quarterback room and win games. And then as these, first few games start to develop, we get a better feel for what that looks like. Learned some things about Kyle on Saturday. Saw some things that were really good. Saw some things that he's got to improve on. Again, disappointed that we couldn't get more on the field with Devin, but hopefully this week we can and continue to evaluate it. But Kyle will start again this week, and then we'll keep going from there.
Right behind him, Dylan Davis, Delaware.
Is that, just to kind of piggyback on what Bill was asking, I guess, how do you weigh wanting to get Devin in the game, but if Kyle is the guy you're going to put on the field first, every snap he takes is important in his development. So
Sure.
I guess how do you weight getting Devin time? But
Yeah, that's what we're working through now. Yeah, it's if it was an easy answer, I'd give it to you, and I think that's what's unique about this season. And so, I wanted to see if we could get into a rhythm, in the throwing game a little bit with Kyle and some of the receivers. We do that in practice. I thought at times we did, other times we didn't. But, we got to find that right formula because it's a long season.
Right behind him, Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
Right, you talked about not wanting to be reckless in week one, getting out of there with a win. When do you flip that switch from being conservative, like you said, to being more aggressive? Does that happen in week 2, week 3, or does that happen later in the season?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. It's probably the art of coaching is figuring that out and figuring how much and how aggressive we can be. I think that's trust over time has a big part to do with the quarterback and has a lot to do with the offensive line. I think that, the more trust that, we all have in them, the more we can let it rip. But, my job is to make sure we win games here. And when the defense is playing well and we have some, inexperienced guys in there, you got to make sure you do what's right and make sure you get on that plane with a win. It's not always pretty, not always fun, frustrating at times, but at least we get to check that box. Now we got to identify the areas we got to improve on.
Right behind him, Cameron T. Robinson, the Athletic.
Ryan, Chip has done a little bit of everything between his time here and at Arizona State, and then Saturday you put him out there as a lead blocker at times. What did you see this offseason that stood out that you thought Chip could be a guy who, I know you want to use these running backs in different ways, but could be a lead blocker as well?
Well, you look at his versatility. He can do everything. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. Had a really nice catch on that third down, and I thought Kyle did a nice job of extending that play. He's big and strong. He can block. You saw him as an insert fullback. I say fullback. He's not a fullback. He's just a big running back, and there's a lot of things that you can do with that in protection. And then you saw him, just running the ball from the backfield. When you can do a lot of those things, then you can really create stress on a defense. And you saw us do that with Xavier last year. You saw us do that in the third down. At the end of the first, second half, we'll continue to build on those packages. And the more versatility you have, just like Sonny Styles, those guys, those hybrid kind of guys, they give you a lot of things. And so excited to see where that goes. I think the one thing we just always have to be careful of is, when those guys can do a lot, you can do a lot too. We have to make sure we're doing what we do really well and playing fast.
You used G. Scott a lot in that two tight end sets. How much has he grown as a blocker from really just throughout his career, especially from last year now?
Yeah, when you move to tight end, it's a process. That's probably the most developmental position there is in football, in my opinion. You have to be able to run routes like a receiver, block like an offensive lineman, and protect like a running back. And he invested when he made that move. He knew it was going to be a 2-year investment, and that wasn't easy for him. But he's put the work in. He's out there every day. He works really hard in practice, and he deserves to be on the field. I think he played maybe 25 snaps or something like that, and so that was the first time he's played that many snaps. And that's a new feeling for him that he's evaluating and figuring out the things that he needs to improve on. But it was a start for him.
Far right, Adam King, WBNS 10 TV.
Coach, you kind of going off what Andy said, the aggressiveness, not just in the play calling. Obviously, with the young quarterback, you don't just want him throwing into one-on-one coverage and hoping that it lands with Marv. But when do you hope for a quarterback to start taking those shots and trusting his receivers?
Well, I mean, we threw some that we missed, and I think if you connect on those, you're probably more likely to call more and you get in a rhythm. When you don't, you kind of look up and it's an incomplete pass and the clock's not running, and you need that thing to run to make sure you're leaving with a win. So I think it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I think if we can be on schedule running the football and getting 4 yards and being in 2nd and 6 as opposed to 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 9, that makes a big difference as well. So I think it all goes together with the execution, and I think the more our guys work and the more we play, certainly the more aggressive we'll be.
You talk about the clock running. Just what were your thoughts kind of during the game when you would look up and see how fast the game was moving?
Yeah, I had an idea. We talked about it before the game as a team, but you feel it. You do. And so we just got to handle it and have a plan for it.
Front row, or right in front of them, Clay Hall, WSYS.
Are you fortunate to have two FCS teams here now and maybe get some of the kinks out or start to stick your chest out, get in a rhythm of some sort?
I think we only have one, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's really it's rarely about our opponent. Certainly, sometimes it is, but we've got a lot of guys that need to get reps and we need to play. So, looking forward to this week. Looking forward to getting more film out there so we can just roll. But I know our guys are excited to have the first home game and certainly being in Ohio University, and certainly with Coach Tressel and his history there, being the president. It's going to be a good afternoon, and we got a lot of respect for the university. But for us, it's about us. It's about us trying to get better and get more film out there and figure out, where are we improving? Because a lot of people say you improve immensely from week 1 to week 2, and I think that's important. And it's certainly going to be important on Saturday, but it's important during the week. Today's a Tuesday practice for us. We got to have a great practice. We got to really address the issues, because when you have that first game, there's certain things that you make assumptions on that you're right on. There's other assumptions that you make that maybe you were wrong on, and then you got to go from there. And I think that's probably why people make that comment about week 1 and week 2.
How important is it this defense can carry or play lights out each week to take the pressure off the offense?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really look at it like that. I think that everyone's got to hold up their end of the bargain here, and when we're playing complementary football, then we can be the best team in America. But it was great to see the defense get out there and play the way they did. Certainly have bigger challenges coming, but it was a great start. And anytime you can hold a team to 3 points when they're running an offense that you hadn't prepared for, great job, great start. And I think you can see what I saw during the offseason when I came in and said, I'm seeing these guys fly around. You're seeing length, you're seeing speed, and just playing more decisive. And that happened on Saturday. So it was just a start, but we'll go from there.
Right in front of them, Tom Barry, WBNS 10 TV.
Coach, how tough is it? There's only one way to get game reps, and that's playing in the game. And as you have said, this is kind of uncharted waters with these two quarterbacks.
Yeah.
How do you get obviously they got to get the confidence and they got to get it. Are you seeing that with Kyle right now? You want to see it with Devin. And how long till traditionally do you think the game starts to slow down for them? And where is their confidence level right now?
Well, I think it takes a little bit of time when you're seeing things that are in real time, and you're actually getting hit in the pocket, and everything becomes real. And it takes, I don't know how many reps. It's different for each guy. Some guys can step right in and it just kind of goes quickly. Other guys, it takes more time. I think each guy is unique. I think both guys, feel like they can run the offense. I think both guys want to play, and so I think that the confidence of that is great. They just really haven't done a lot of it, so I think that's just the missing piece.
Front row right, Austin Ward, Rivals, the podcast.
Brian, you said something really interesting about the leap maybe from week 1 to week 2, which is could be wrong assumptions. Are there any of those you feel like you saw on Saturday? Wrong assumptions that you had?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean it's like that every year. You know, you go into the first game and there's certain things that you think that are going to happen that don't happen, or you think that aren't going to happen that do happen, and then you have to adjust from there. I mean that it's very very common for the first game, but yeah, there's definitely things out there that we learned on Saturday.
What's the line between figuring out what they are from a small sample size, seeing, because you said mixed bag a bunch on Saturday, and I asked you about that after the game, but there was probably potential in every single unit. How do you determine what's real and what isn't from that amount of reps?
Yeah, you go on your experience and what you see on the film, and you can't go off anything else. And what you see on film is what you are. A famous coach said that all the time. I mean, your opinion of who you are is one thing, but what you see on film is actually what you are, and each coach has to identify that, each coordinator, the head coach. I mean, ultimately, it all comes back on me. So we have to go with what we see on film and, make the corrections and then project it from there.
Far left, Whitney Harding, WCMH.
Ryan, when you schedule some of these games between, let's face the Big Ten or the bigger games, some of these smaller schools present something that is maybe something you want to face or work on. Might be too early in the week to ask, but is there something Youngstown State does that you guys would be good to prepare and get ready for specifically?
I mean, I think we're going to focus on playing really, really hard and executing really well and being clean. They have very good coaches, and they do a really nice job. I mean, they you put on the film from last year against Kentucky. They played them really well. It was 31-0, and I forget what the score was at halftime and what the second half looked like. But they ran around and played hard and got to Levis a few times, and so I mean they're going to come in here and play really, really hard. And these are Ohio guys, a lot of them that have a lot of pride. So we're going to focus on matching that intensity, bringing it, playing really hard, and executing at a high level. And certainly some schematic things that we're going to focus on, but that'll be the biggest focus this week.
This may be a little bit out of left field, and when you're on the field, you may not notice this. It'll be the first game without Bob Kennedy in the PA role. I don't know if you ever met Bob or all that, but your thoughts maybe on that legacy and what it's going to be like to have a different voice.
Yeah, a lot of respect for, like you said, the legacy that he left behind, and for so many now, I guess year 7 for me, and for so many others, decades of hearing that voice on game day. It is going to be very different. It kind of comes with all the other traditions at Ohio State. So he will be sorely missed, and certainly did leave a lot behind and gave a lot to Ohio State.
Second row left, Steve Hellwager, 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, Coach, I want to ask you about a couple guys maybe we didn't get to see. Jihad Carter, there was a lot of talk maybe he would start there at safety, and I don't think he played. Is everything okay with him? Or
Yeah.
do you expect him in the next game or two to see some action? Or
I do. Yeah, he needs to have a good week of practice, but we hope to see him play this week.
Xavier Johnson was a pretty big part of the offense last year. Is this an indication more that Fleming and Tate are, where they are in the position with that group, and that, or Xavier's still trying to get all the way back?
I think it's a good point because, when you look at a couple of the groupings that we had with the 3 tight ends, and we had in 22 where we had Chip in there, and then you get into some of the other groupings in 11 and 12, there's only so much you can do. And X is going to play this year. He's going to be a big part of our offense. He didn't get as much as you would have liked. I think that's probably if you say one of my biggest concerns about, the number of possessions coming down, the number of plays across the country coming down is, we have a lot of guys who deserve to play. And so, the number of touches, the number of plays for some of these guys, that does concern me. But Xavier deserves to play, and he will, and he'll get his opportunities.
Third row left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, what did Josh Proctor do to earn the opportunity to start, and how do you feel like he performed out there?
He's been consistent, and that's something that's always been a focus for Josh, is his consistency. When no one ever really questioned his effort, and so he needs to be a major contributor for us. He needs to be consistent, and that's somebody who's been in the program as long as he has. That's what he needs to bring, and so he's played a lot of football games. You think back on even when he was young. So we need that, and then Malik and Jihad will also, be back there in that position. Jihad can kind of move to the bandit where Lathan is. But we need him to be consistent, and we need him to be a veteran guy. And he showed up. Yeah, he graded out a champion and played well.
See Josh continuing to be the starter there?
Yeah. I mean, unless something comes up here, but I mean, I think you'll see those other guys play. But Josh right now, has earned the right on the field to be the starter.
Deep right, Spencer Goldbrook, Letterman Rowe.
Brian, it seemed like there was some, maybe not chemistry issues, but just a little bit off with some of the wide receivers. Kyle and Cade seemed to be really clicking on Saturday. Have you seen that, and how much does that help your offense? Where if you can get the ball to Cade, and maybe it opens up other things where you might have thought the opposite at the beginning of the season, where the receivers would open up for Cade.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the case just in general what you said, but it seemed like that maybe was on Saturday for whatever reason. I think maybe that's because Cade's finding himself in some one-on-one situations. A couple of the ones he was down the field on a linebacker, and that's a good matchup for us. I thought he did a nice job in 1 3rd down, or I think it was in the 2-minute. He really wiggled free and created some separation. That's been an emphasis for Cade. But I don't think that's something that we've seen consistently over preseason camp where there's more chemistry there than anybody else. I just think that presented itself in the game.
He seems to be running really crisp routes. Have you seen that develop? It seemed like last year he was really focusing on that, and this year, but Saturday especially, he looked very crisp.
Yeah, it's been a huge emphasis for Cade. He wants to be versatile, and we know that he's going to be in one-on-one situations a lot on 3rd down. It's been a major emphasis about, like you said, getting down the field with more urgency, big strides, crisp with his routes. And he's a big target. That's friendly for a quarterback. So if he can create enough separation and play big, then that's going to help us on 3rd down especially. But that has been an emphasis for him in the offseason.
Second row middle, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
Did anyone on the offensive line grade a champion on Saturday?
Yeah. I believe it was Josh Fryer.
Just one out of the 5 graded champion. You knew that there was going to be an adjustment period for Josh Simmons coming to this level. You kind of evaluate what you saw from him specifically and what needs to be better going forward.
Yeah, again, the word is consistency. He did some good things. You can see it. You can see the athleticism, but just not consistent enough for what we need.
It seemed like there were times when you want to run a lot of 12 anyway, but the way you guys were using that at times maybe to help fortify that a little bit. How much of that can you do while also being true to what you want to be as an offense? Is there a point where you have to stop doing that?
I don't know if we'll ever stop. We've always had 12 as part of our package, but you saw a little bit of 13 and 22 in there. Really trying to establish running downhill. Didn't quite get exactly what we wanted there, but so there were some good things in there. We hit the 3rd down, 2 touchdown runs, I believe it was, and we know, in the red zone and short yardage, we're going to need those runs. So. And then we also, spread it open in a bigger set. Tried to get Marvin in a one-on-one. We didn't connect on it, but we did get the one-on-one that we wanted. Just didn't execute it well enough in the red zone. But yeah, I think you have to evaluate all those things. What is the best personnel groups moving forward? And just because it's something we've done in the past doesn't necessarily mean it has to be the same moving forward. But we're not going to bang our head against the wall either.
Right in front of him, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
You mentioned assumptions. Austin asked you about it. Are you willing to specify what maybe those assumptions were that you?
Yeah, I'd rather not. Yeah, I'd rather not get into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you more about the offensive line. With those 3 new starters, you probably knew it's going to take some time. You can practice. Were you overall disappointed in what you saw, or when you watched it, did you think, okay, these are fairly correctable, easily correctable things, or think, okay, we got a real issue here?
Yeah, I don't see anything on the film that isn't correctable, like guys just getting flat out beat or not good enough. So that is the most encouraging thing. I think they are things that can get corrected. Would have loved to see better execution, but the things that we've seen there are all correctable.
First start, what would you want to say about it?
Not bad. Yeah. I mean, I was encouraged overall. He did not grade out a champion, but for the first road game at center with everything going on, I thought he called a decent game. There was a couple things that were a little funky in there, but overall was okay. and now you get that first game under your belt. Hopefully, now moving forward, you can really focus on, now what really matters as opposed to, the question marks of your first game. What is that all going to feel and look like?
And we'll wrap things up with Tim May on 3, Letterman Row, Tim May podcast.
Thanks, Jerry. Ryan, as you sit here right today and you're thinking about that, we're dissecting this game like you wouldn't believe, but it appeared that Kyle didn't have, like, I'd call a full leash, maybe, from a read standpoint, because you could look at a Marvin Harrison Jr. breaking wide open down the seam, and Kyle still threw the ball to the left, where the safety had jumped. Then there was that time when you guys were at the goal line and Marvin's one-on-one with a corner and everybody else is way over here. Y'all still ran the ball or whatever it was on that play. I think you came back with a fade the next play, but it got broken up. But I guess how short of a leash was Kyle on in terms of reading and throwing the ball where the guy's wide open and or changing a play?
No, I know what you're asking. We have plays that are full field progressions. We have other plays that are kind of 1 to 2, and we have all of those in the arsenal. And there are certain plays where I think we did a decent job of reading it and getting it to where it goes. Other parts where we got to continue to see it a little bit better. But overall, I thought it was pretty well done. To sit here and say that we have everything that we had for CJ last year in how we're doing things right now. No, that's not it. But we didn't have that for him as he was a starter, 2 years ago either. So the more we can execute, the better we can see the things and make sure our eyes are right and deliver the ball and execute the plays. Then the more we can build on it. But we want to make sure that we're doing the right things for our guys, and that's up front and in the passing game to execute them. That's our job as coaches, is to put in the right environment to be successful. So hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and the other thing, critics are all over the place, of course, about, why didn't he name a starter and just go with this guy? What's the quandary about between him and Devin? You've explained this to us several times. Devin deserves this look, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the way he's played. Are you writing this textbook as you go about how you come up with a starter in this kind of situation? I mean, does it feel like that?
Yeah, like I said, when you watch Devin, he deserves to play, and he's played that way throughout preseason camp. The first game came and Kyle started, and he'll continue to play. He's going to start in the next game, and maybe there's more clarity moving forward. But until we get into these games, it's really hard to do that. I'd love to say, Kyle's a starter and Devin's not going to play, but that's not the case, and that's not fair to him either. It's not fair to the team, So, I don't have, like I said, I do not have a crystal ball. I don't know what it's going to look like. I wish I did. I know everybody wants to know what it's going to look like, but we'll just keep grinding on this thing and keep trying to find wins, because we know it's a long season, and ultimately we have to find out what is best for our team. We felt like we had to go get a win on Saturday. I wish it was cleaner across the board. It wasn't, but we got the win, and now we identify the things we got to get better at and see what it looks like this week. Yep.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you. Yep.
Sure. Appreciate it. Again, as always, appreciate you guys coming out, joining us today. Kind of recap the Towson game. As I said after the game on Saturday, I thought the energy and effort was where we would want it to be. But obviously, there's still some things that we've got to get cleaned up, which we expected. It's always great to be able to clean things up with a win. Makes it a lot easier. It was great to be able to play a bunch of guys. We were able to play in all 3 phases a good amount of our team. And anytime you're able to do that, that's very beneficial for us down the road. So there's some things that we'll continue to clean up this week. As per normal, for a team, you usually see that big jump between game 1 to game 2, and we're very hopeful now that we've got a game under our belt, some things that we need to get corrected, we'll be able to get corrected and executed better in week 2. Charlotte's coming in, a national TV game here in the Shell at night, familiar opponent that we played a year ago. Obviously, they've got a new coaching staff that we're very familiar with, Coach Poggi. Who I don't just call an opponent. He's also a dear friend. He coached my son in high school. My son Kai played for Biff there at Gilman. So I've known Biff for a long, long time and got a lot of respect for him and the job he does as a coach in developing young men. I know our fans will come out and create the environment that we want to have for a Saturday night national TV game, and we're very hopeful that we can pack the shell. It's a great opportunity for us to take the next step as a program and show our Terps fans what we're all about as we continue to create an identity for us this year. Our game captains this week, Charlotte native DJ Glaze, Jeremy Spraggins and Corey Deiches will serve as our Game 2 captains, and we're looking forward to those guys leading us. And then with that, I'll open it up to whatever questions you guys have.
Mike, you had a chance to play a lot of offensive linemen last Saturday, and as you move forward and as you look to get this O-line in shape for Big Ten play, what things were you looking for last Saturday, and what questions were answered on a micro and a macro level?
Yeah, going into it, obviously we had a couple missing pieces there that had been available to us most of training camp, and we're hopeful that we're able to get, Gotti back this week possibly, which will, again, allow us to kind of solidify some things there. I thought, for the most part, the O-line did a decent job. I think our quarterback got sacked on the last play of the game, gave up 1 sack. When you watch the tape, seems as though there was pressure, especially interior pressure for our quarterback early on. But after, you review it, you see it, that's just some of that is an example of our quarterback who doesn't give up on plays. And when Leah tries to extend plays, there are times that maybe he puts himself in harm's way. And what we've going to do is continue to coach him how to help protect himself, as well as, our line to understand that we do have a guy back there that if you allow him to extend things, usually good things happen. As coming out of that first game, we have a pretty good understanding now of what those guys do in game. And so this week we'll try to maybe solidify it a little bit, maybe not have as much of the substitution there and give guys a chance to gel and come together. But it was good to be able to play a lot of them a week ago to give us an opportunity to evaluate them in in-game situations.
Hey, Coach. I know you had talked about just playing a lot of players, obviously, but going into this upcoming week, there'll be some familiarity with the roster. Obviously, I believe it's 6 players who played here last year who are now in Charlotte. But when you watch Game 1, what kind of jumped out, whether it's from a player perspective or kind of scheme?
Yeah, Game 1 for them, I don't coach their team, but it looked like they didn't show a lot. I mean, they didn't have to necessarily, I guess, get into too deep into their game plan. When you watch the tape, I think they had 68 snaps on defense, and they were in some base man-free stuff. But when you do your research, as we've done over the summer, with our summer scouting report, we expect them to play more split safety than maybe post-safety stuff that they showed a week ago. On the offensive side of the ball, again, they were very limited game plan. They were able to get their stuff executed. If you know Biff, he wants to run the football. He wants to play downhill. He's kind of one of those guys that wants to make it a tough, gritty game, and that's what we expect. Again, the familiarity. Obviously, they've got Mike Miller, a former assistant here, who's been with me for some time, and there is some familiarity from a personnel standpoint. You look across their roster, and they've got, I want to say, 25, 30 guys from Power 5 institutions, so they've been able to flip their roster, and they've got some really talented players in all 3 phases.
Hey, Coach.
Sean.
So with Coach Poggi, can you kind of elaborate on your relationship with Biff and how it's evolved over the years? You mentioned Kai and Gilman and everything. Just what's that relationship like with Biff?
Yeah, I've known Biff probably since about 1997, 98 when I came here as a young assistant, and he was coaching over at Gilman. We recruited his school for some time. When I came back here in 2012, my son ended up going to Gilman and played 3 years there for Coach Poggi, and he did a tremendous job creating value for my son, where he was able to sign with Texas coming out of high school, and great education there at Gilman. And Biff is one of those guys that's similar to myself. He's not just about developing them as football players, but developing them as people. And I know he develops really strong relationships. And through that, he and I have become, great friends, as well as obviously now competitors, and looking forward to it. I know he'll have his team ready to come play up here. It's kind of a homecoming for him and some of the players on his roster. When you look across and see the amount of guys that are there with him that he had in high school, and those guys were really good players. So we expect him to come up and give us his best, and he can expect to get ours.
Yeah, Coach, the
What's up, Noah?
partnership between the Big Ten and NBC is a new thing this year. I guess they're going to have the pregame show here this weekend. What do you think it means, I guess, for the league and for your program to have this sort of new primetime national TV slot to play in?
Yeah, you know, all of our partners are equally important. I think, obviously, with this time slot being a national TV time slot, it's good for Maryland. It's good for us to showcase the university. It's good for us to showcase the things that we have here in the DMV area. So we're excited about the opportunity. You know, NBC takes the place of some of the other partners maybe we've had down the past, but I know this. The guys that are calling it for them are professional. Well, they call games really well, and they'll do their due diligence. And I know as a conference, we're excited about being able to have the NBC as a major partner for us.
Hey, Michael, third straight game without allowing a touchdown. Just what are some of the factors that have gone into that, and how much optimism does that provide you as you get into the early part of the season?
You know, I think as any time you're able to, the goal on defense is to limit scoring. And, you know, this past weekend we were able to hold them to 2 field goals, and we gave up some yardage there, but we dug in our heels there once they crossed into the red zone area. I think it's a testament to the players coming into it. We felt that our defense, we had a chance to be pretty good on defense because of the front 7. It was great with the additions of guys like Jaquan Shepard, you know, being able to come fill in and fill some voids, and he played really well for us. So I think the defense is the strength of our team from the standpoint that, you know, we've got a lot of veteran leadership. I think that side of the ball has quite a few great leaders, and I think, you know, they got off to a fast start on defense, and I'm hope we're able to continue it through this next game.
Hey, Coach.
Sam, what's up?
How you doing? Just wondering, you know, in terms of this game, you know, having that national audience like you talked about, having a chance to showcase some of Maryland's traditions and kind of the DMV as you spoke about, how important is it to you to, you know, have those local ties to the area, to the fan base, as, you know, you've talked about before, and now you're getting to put it on for a national audience, like the flag drop, whether it be, you know, having Maryland just showcased in this type of spot?
You know, as I said, you know, anytime you play a national TV game, it's great for the university. You know, I saw something come out where we're ranked one of the top 30, 25 universities in the country. And, you know, when you bring a national TV audience to your campus, you're able to illuminate the great things about being here in the DMV, you know, the 4th largest media market in the country. And so it gives us an opportunity to really show what we have here. And so, like I said before, our players are excited. I'm excited about this partnership and to be able to play here, but obviously we got to go do the work and do the things necessary to keep this excitement.
Hey, Coach.
Taylor, what's up?
What's going on? You said after the game Saturday that you were particularly impressed with Talia throwing deep and the trajectory on those balls and the accuracy of them. Was that something that you guys maybe worked on over the offseason, and what were some things in particular that you did for him to improve in that regard, and how did you kind of accomplish that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, one of the questions I oftentimes get about Talia is what can he do to improve? And I think I've been on the record that, you know, last year we left some plays on the field in the deep passing game, which was something that I think is a strength of his. You know, I attributed it last year to possibly just the timing. You know, when you think of the receivers we had a year ago, you know, the 3 starters were coming off of injuries where they missed spring ball. Dante Demas didn't practice in the spring. Rakim Jarrett didn't practice. Jacob Copeland was limited. And so I don't think we ever really got the timing down. And there were times where there were open guys and we mishit or didn't hit them accurately. There were times where we maybe missed the read. So after you review and go through kind of the quality control of what we can do better, that was the one area in Leah's game that we thought we needed to improve. And so what you do is you go about figuring out, setting up individual drill work. Some of it is footwork for him in the back end and making sure that he's got his eyes in the right place and that the ball has the right trajectory where you throw guys open. I thought Saturday, you know, obviously he had the big one that was dropped and then came back and, you know, had a couple of drops on some deep shots where I thought he threw the ball where we wanted it to be thrown with the type of trajectory. So worked really hard. Josh, you know, continues to drill him quite a bit, and you see the fruits of the work.
Hey, Coach. I was going to ask about Talia as well. I know, he took a couple hits, but just the guys behind him. Billy Edwards, he was able to come in, and Cam Edge, that was his first career appearance. So, how would you kind of maybe assess Talia, just kind of maybe playing through, some of those big hits in week one, and then with Billy and Cam Edge and their appearances as well?
Yeah, as I said earlier with Leah, some of the hits he took, as you can see, were part of him extending plays. I mean, one of the things that you love about him is that he has the ability to extend, and one of the things that scares the mess out of you is when he does try to extend, sometimes he puts himself in harm's way. And, as I said to him on the sideline, it's okay to give up on a play and play the next down. But I think every play, because of the competitiveness he has, he's trying to make everything work. But as he continues to mature and he's really shown the ability, he could have finished the game. We took most of the starters out after the first drive of the second half. There's nothing structurally. I mean, he got banged up. And when you play the game of football, the way Leah plays, sometimes he'll take some of these shots. And my goal is to minimize them and eliminate them. And we'll continue to work with him on, maybe not trying to make everything a touchdown, and throwaways are good. I think he was 23 of 33, and he had 7 drops and 3 throwaways. So the accuracy is there. We just got to continue to work with him to help protect himself. And then we got to do a better job on the interior part of our protection, where we solidify those A and B gaps to give him a little more time from a vision standpoint.
Coach, congratulations on the win.
Thanks, Bruce.
Looking around the country, you saw Coach Prime with a huge upset. You saw Duke destroy Clemson. You saw FSU destroy LSU. You saw Indiana give Ohio State all they wanted.
Where are we going with this, Bruce?
I'm going to go with, no, I got a point.
All right.
You have had tremendous success in your first games of the year. And I think that you prepare for those early games better than as well as anybody, okay? What has to happen for Maryland to get an Ohio State to come here for opening day, or a Penn State? Is that a matter of just the conference, or is that something you request? And have you thought about that?
Have not thought about it. I guess winning the opening game means I can hit the fastball, but I need to work on that curveball a little bit. The conference makes our schedule. We play whoever pops up on there, and we've been really fortunate that we've had opportunities to have success early, which I think is great for a team that's in building mode like we are, because we want to try to get better with each game. And we all know we play in a tough league, and so you want to build up to it and continue to work through the kinks so that once we do hit conference play, which is a second season for us, we're hoping to be hitting on all cylinders. And so, to be able to open up, I think it's great for the area when we play local teams like Towson, like Howard, and some of these teams here. I think it's always great to play regional rivalries like West Virginia, like Virginia. I've shared my opinions with Colleen and with Damon in terms of scheduling from that standpoint. But, we play them how they're put on our schedule.
Hey, Coach.
Hey, Varun.
You talked about Jaquan Shepard. I wanted to ask, what drew you guys to him when you were looking in the portal, and how does he compare to Deontay or Jacorian, skill set-wise?
I mean, his size, his speed, he was probably the best available corner in the transfer portal, a first-team all-conference guy in the AAC, and they play against some teams that throw the ball around the yard. I knew about him. As I told you, a lot of the guys in the portal are guys that we've recruited, that we have really close ties so that we know what type of character we're bringing in. That's really important to me. We'll always be a team that recruits high school first. We'll use the portal to fill needs as we've done here the last couple of years, and we've been really fortunate. But to be able to get a guy like Jaquan to come here when he could have gone anywhere in the country, I think is a testament to the things we're doing and also to what we have to offer our kids. So how he compares to Deontay Banks, I mean, they look very similar in their uniforms. I think he may be even a little bigger than Tay is, but, really pleased with the way he played in the first game for us.
Okay, I'm Judith, by the way. I
Hey,
didn't ask
Judith. Good
a
to see you.
question last week. What do you guys have to do to kind of slow down the run? Charlotte rushed for over 200 yards in their first game, and Towson got bulk of its yards on the ground as well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of Towson's yards came from the quarterback scramble, and as I talked about, after the game, containing a running quarterback, and that will be something we'll have to deal with. They got a really athletic quarterback in number one, Jalen Jones, who, with the zone read games and the QB runs, which we expect to see because it adds an extra blocker for them, that's something to be concerned for and something that we expect and we're preparing for. QB runs, like I said, give them a numbers advantage when you try to load the box. So what we've got to do is be really gap sound. We've got to do a good job of getting off blocks. We've got to do a great job of containing him because a lot of the runs that we faced a week ago that had success came off of drop back passes and maybe rushing too far up the field and not level rushing the quarterback that allows the defense to kind of contain him inside the pocket. We've got to do a better job this week. I think we had 12 loss of contains in the game last week, and for us, I see losing contain is a lot like turnovers on offense, and so that's something that we definitely have to get fixed from game 1 to game 2. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you guys working with us on this, short week. Yesterday would have been a little bit of a stretch, so this is good. We'll get this done, and then you get the players. I'll help you any way I can.
I guess we'll start with penalties. That was an issue last year. Only 2 penalties against Northwestern. One was a delay game, I believe, on a punt even. So how encouraging was it for that, and especially for an offensive line that you're rotating a bunch of guys, no penalties for them?
It's a good job. It's one game, right? So we had 2 penalties in the Northwestern season, and one of them was on purpose. So we had 1 penalty. But you got to remember there were a couple other penalties that did not get enforced. So it's not quite as clean as it looks, but we need to just in this Temple season we really got to bear down on that. We did today. It was pretty clean today.
What's your initial thoughts on Temple? Obviously the quarterback's a pretty good player, but what do you think?
He is a very good player. They got a transfer wide receiver who from Colorado State who's very impressive, and then they have the kid they had last year who's really a good player. He's wearing number 1 now. 2 backs that are Big Ten level backs. Really, really good players. Got a young O-line, right? So see what we can do there. They're learning. They're much like our O-line, trying to figure out who's who plays where. They're getting the guy back that is kind of more of a stalwart there. They have a receiver, like I said, number 1. They're getting him back, so they're getting some guys healthy for this game. Defensively, they have a number 13 is a really good player. He's a disruptive player. He has forced fumbles. I think he's got like 6 or 7 forced fumbles in his career. We better know where he is. They have another transfer from Colorado State. They must have went shopping in Colorado. Colorado State safety's a really good player too. He showed up in a lot of different ways, and I think they're strong up the middle. They got a young D, the D front. They have a true freshman playing in the D front, who's big, and you can see he's a physically mature guy. And then the corner, number 7, he's a ball hawk. We got to be really careful around him. So, they're a much improved football team. You can see, and they should have beat us last year. So, we were fortunate to get out of the stadium with a victory. So we know what we're in for, and we got to have a great week of practice, and it's a short week, so we really got to bear down and chop.
Going back to Sunday, it seems like you didn't really do much rotating with the DBs and the linebackers. Was that more part of the plan, or was that just because the offense controlled the ball so well?
We didn't really get the play load that you normally assume you would get. So, you practice all training camp. Those guys got to get some work. The plan was to play some other guys more. We just didn't have many plays. So that's a good thing, yet it's not such a good thing for experience.
I guess, what was it like to see Motoré back and have a productive start to the season after what he went through last year and just what he brings to the defense now?
Yeah, it's great. Like you look at a guy like Motoré who was out last year, and it's got to tell you something when his teammates elect him captain. Hasn't played in a year, right? So the last time we remember him was in 21. Yet that's the kind of respect he has in that locker room. And he's a grown man. Like, when he goes to tackle you, he tackles you, yeah.
After seeing what you saw out of Gavin Wimsatt in week 1, and, how do you feel like you and the staff can sort of build off of what you saw from him so far?
Just stick to the plan, right? Kirk and he joined at the hip, and he's just got to keep studying and seeing it and studying. And when you get into game plan weeks, it becomes very specific to the team you're playing. So yes, we have our base offense, but now it fits to what Temple's doing. And what Temple's doing is in some ways uniquely different than Northwestern. In other ways, they're similar, which sounds, oh, that's good. Well, it's not always good because only the certain things that are similar can rules carry over for. And the things that are different, you have to treat them differently. And that is a young quarterback. That's hard, right? Because you grooved it all training camp against Rutgers. Then you grooved it for 6 practices against Northwestern. Now we got 3 practices in a short week to get it all ready for Temple. And Coach Withers, who coordinates the defense, is a really good football coach. He's experienced, and we've gone against each other over the years in both NFL and college. I mean, he's an excellent football coach. So he's gonna present issues that only experienced coaches know how to present.
What's something that you can
just can you give an update on Marquise Watson, Coach Watson, where he's at, and do you expect to have him back?
Don't know if we'll have him back for Saturday night. I sure hope so. He's doing better. Yeah, and he's he's one of us. He's a tough guy, and he'll get well.
what's something that you can expect the offense to execute better against Temple from the first game?
Really everything. Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of things that had to be cleaned up. We played with effort, which gets you, sometimes when you play really hard, it covers up a lot of mistakes. So the guys did play hard, but technically and execution-wise, there's a lot to clean up. But that's what we practice for. The old adage, the biggest improvement you make is between game 1 and game 2. That's always been said in coaching. I sure hope it is this week because we have a lot to get better at.
Could you clarify now that you've had a couple of days about what actually the NCAA violation was for Nassim Brantley, and is it still lingering?
Yeah, it's not a violation, but it's an eligibility question. I'm not going to get into the details yet because it's still under advisement. But you could see Saturday how disappointed I was. I mean, this is a kid who came here and had a tragic compound fracture of his leg, playing at another school, and I just don't. I'm at a loss. I really am at a loss. But we're going to keep working because that kid deserves to play. There's no funny business. It's just that.
Eligibility in terms of transfer?
Yeah.
To quickly follow up on that, is that a thing that you think could linger the whole season? Are you hoping for?
I couldn't tell you.
Sure.
When you try to predict that stuff, you're better off buying a lottery ticket.
Sure. And with Marquise, has he been able to talk to you or the team at all, just since Sunday? And
yeah.
Can you share? I know it's sensitive, but can you share anything about when it happened and kind of how you guys told the team? Just
I'd rather not. That's personal. I probably said more than I should have, but he, I know people care about him, and I want them to know that he's doing better, and we'll get him back eventually. So.
Did he talk to the team? Was he able to?
I know he's talked to his players. I don't know if he talked to the whole team, but I've seen him. Seen him talk to him every day, and he's getting better.
Greg, one of the biggest surprises on Saturday was seeing Gus Lewinskas out there with the first team. Can you talk about his development and what he did to earn the job?
Yeah. He gave us the best chance to win. And again, that's what it comes down to every time. When a personnel decision is made, it's strictly based on that. So how did he do that? He was more consistent. And that's what you're looking for.
How's Wesley doing?
Wesley Belly. I believe he's going to be okay. He was limited today. Again, we're on a short week. So, this should really be the day they have off, getting a lot of treatment, and then get it cranked up for tomorrow. So we've kind of just backed things up for the injured guys, but we can't back it up for the guys that are good to go. So, but I believe he'll be able to go.
Ian Strong opened some eyes on Sunday. How do you handle this week, given that he's a true freshman, gets a touchdown? I mean, not just the development side, but also just handling the emotions and everything else that goes into a performance like that.
Yeah, every guy is different. You say, how do you handle it? Like, everybody's personality is different, so I deal with them on an individual basis. Ian's kind of a cool customer. Doesn't really show a lot of emotion, kind of chill. Works really hard. So as long as he keeps working really hard, I don't worry about him. Now, if I see him not working really hard, he'll know it before. A lot of people know it. Yeah, So I'm supposed to say, no, I'm only kidding. We're having a blackout at the stadium, and I would love to encourage all the fans to wear black to the game this week. So if you guys could write about that, that would be a huge favor for us, right? It's going to be cool. Night game, blackout, right? Can't wait. Kids are excited about it. You'll see them when they come in. They got their black helmets and stuff. They're breaking them in this week, so thank you.
Like always, appreciate everybody coming out to cover Penn State football. We do appreciate that. Don't take it for granted. You know, one of the things that you know we're going to talk about, you know, with the team is this week of football, Thursday through Sunday, you know, shows our staff and our players that you better appreciate winning and what winning takes. You better respect it and you better appreciate it and what winning takes, because it's hard to do. It's hard to do. I want to thank our fans. The environment was phenomenal. It was a great crowd. Obviously, you know, one of the larger crowds, especially for an opening weekend that we've ever had. So that was awesome. What a statement it would be this weekend if we're able to do it again. So challenge all of our fans to come out and let's enjoy another Saturday in Beaver Stadium. And we're very, very appreciative of the environment and the type of support we get. This Saturday is our Thon game, and we'll also be welcoming back and honoring the 1973 undefeated team, celebrating their 50th anniversary. So a bunch of good stuff there. When you talk about the clock, there's been a lot of discussions about the clock in college football. You know, if you go back and look what we averaged last year, what West Virginia averaged last year in terms of plays. We lost 5 plays and they lost 5 plays, so you're talking about a total of 10 plays. I think for the average football fan or person, you probably don't notice it a whole lot. For us, it did feel, I know it sounds crazy, but it did feel dramatically shorter. You know, especially the first half seemed to fly by. But in terms of just football in general, you're talking about 10 plays. Couple other things, you know, talking about West Virginia. On offense, Drew Allar was our player of the game on offense, was also the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week, which is cool. Defensively, Curtis Jacobs. Special teams, Malik McLean. I'd also like to just talk about 2 guys specifically, kind of follow up with Malik McLean. He's been just a wonderful addition to our football family. The guy has got a smile on his face all the time. I mean, literally all the time, in the weight room, walking around campus, going to class. He's done very well academically here. Is trying to help the team be successful in any way, special teams. Obviously, he played really well in his opening game on offense as well. So he's been a really nice addition and has done a really good job, not just from a production standpoint, but from a cultural standpoint. He's been great. Another young man that we recruited out of high school as well, so we had a pre-existing relationship with. And then the other one is Katron Allen. You know, I just want to make sure that our fans and everybody that follows Penn State closely knows how fortunate we are and how blessed we are to have Katron. In our locker room, you know, we got a ton of respect for him, and so does our staff. You know, we are blessed to be one of these programs that has 2 backs that are 2 of the better backs in all of college football, and we recognize that and we're appreciative of that. D Squad Players of the Week, Jan Mallert and Golden Achumba on offense. On defense, Jace Tuddy and Jake Wilson. And then on special teams, Jason Estrella. Felt like those guys did such a good job all week long in getting our team prepared to go out and play against a good West Virginia team. Some other general notes about the game, positives: no turnovers on offense or special teams. We met our explosive play goal on offense and won the overall battle. 9 different offensive players had receptions, real positive. We played 62 guys in the game, 26 on offense, 26 on defense, and 10 on special teams. And then I thought Caden Saunders, it's probably one of those things that goes unnoticed, but he just looks so comfortable and poised catching the football. And then also, which we haven't done consistently over the last couple of years, being comfortable running up in there in traffic. I thought the one should have been a penalty where there was almost contact with his shoulder as he was running to try to get the ball, and caught it in traffic. That ball gets to the ground. Some bad things can happen. It can roll for another 15 yards, but the other thing is it can bounce and hit one of your players and be a turnover. So being able to go up in there and catch the ball in traffic is something really positive to build on. Opportunities for growth. I think it's great that we played so many guys, but the standard is still the standard. Did you play in a way that earned you more reps or less reps based on your performance? We got to create more turnovers through strips and fumbles and obviously INTs, and then consistency in the kicking game. So that's my West Virginia review. Getting on to Delaware. Got a ton of respect for the University of Delaware for a long time. Very successful program. Obviously, you look at their history and their traditions. We have a ton of respect for the university as a whole. Ryan Carty, really is an offensive coordinator, as a head coach with an offensive coordinator background and has done some really good things. 10 returning starters, that's still relevant at this point of the season. Ryan Carty also is the offensive coordinator as well and play caller. They're an RPO spread style offense. Their pass game is vertical, and movements. But in my mind, I expect us to see a ton of quick game, a ton of screens, and a ton of move the pocket type stuff. I think that's how I think they'll play us. They base out of 11 personnel guys that we're impressed with as wide receiver number 17, Jordan Townsend, quarterback number 14, Ryan O'Connor, and then running back number 21, Marcus Yates. Defensively, Manny Rojas. Really kind of comes from like the Al Groh tree of football. And then you look at them, they've taken some of the Iowa State 3 safety scheme and kind of merged those two things. Coach Rojas is from Oakdale, Pennsylvania. But they're a multiple scheme. Front end coverage. A lot of kind of unorthodox and unusual looks. Guys that we're impressed with is linebacker number 0, Jackson Taylor, who's from Pennsylvania. Nose tackle number 55, Keyshawn Hunter, who's a Old Dominion transfer. And then defensive end number 12, Chase McGowan. They're guys that jump out to us. And then on special teams, Art Link. Not a whole lot of examples. They didn't punt in this last game, so we don't have a whole lot of film on those types of things. But we've been impressed with kick returner number 10, Kyron Cumby, who's an Illinois transfer, and then their kick returner number 5, Josh Youngblood, who we're familiar with. This is his 3rd school. He's been at Rutgers. He's been at Kansas State. Was actually the Big 12 Special Teams Player of the Year. So we have some familiarity with him. So hope that gives you guys some information and some talking points, but I open up to questions.
All right, we'll start with the Zoom room. We'll go to Rich Garcella, and then Mark Wogenrich, you're on deck.
Thanks, Greg. Good afternoon, James. How are you today?
Good, Rich. How are you, man?
I'm great. Hey, James, a guy who used to sit in that chair said that a football team, often makes its greatest improvement from week 1 to week 2. Do you agree with that? And if you do, where would you like to see your team make the most improvement this week?
Yeah, I think we need to. I think your first couple weeks in the season, I think you can make significant strides, and you need to make significant strides. I think that's what the best programs do. And I think the best programs improve and learn and make corrections after wins. They don't have to have setbacks. wake-up calls to be able to do it. Now, that's easier said than done. But yeah, I think if you look at us, kind of some of the things that I just hit on, areas for improvement. So we need to be more consistent on the special teams. We need to create more turnovers on defense. And then on offense, we need to improve on our third down percentage and stay on the field. The best offenses get most of their first downs on first and second down, which we did do. But when you're able to combine that with also being efficient on third down, then you're difficult to deal with. So, the areas I talked about, areas for improvement with us, is really, I guess, what we'd be focused on, saying what we'd like to see in these next couple weeks, us build on the things we did well and improve in the areas that need to be addressed.
Let's go to Mark Wogenrich and then Frank Bodani. You're on deck.
Hey, Mark.
James, how are you doing?
Good, buddy.
Appreciate it. You've referenced occasionally the similarities between Bo Prabula and Trace McSorley. What traits, on field and off, do you think they share?
Well, I think first of all, it's the mobility. I think is the first thing. I think the other thing is both of them are kind of men of few words. Both of them, had significant impacts at their high schools in terms of winning and having really productive high school careers. I think they also both have really high football IQs, and the game, makes sense to them. So I would say style of play probably more than anything. Bo's obviously a little bit bigger, but I would say style of play and the guys that have the ability to be able to beat you with decision making as well as their legs.
We'll go to Frank Bodani and then Mike Gross. You're on deck.
Hey, Frank.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you? Thanks.
Good, man.
Your defensive line.
Did you get a
how do you
haircut, Frank?
Yes, I did.
You look very handsome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So your defensive line, how do you think it performed Saturday, especially in the interior? I know some of those guys rebuilt their bodies a little bit, added some weight in the offseason. Is it what you expected? Did you learn anything from those guys?
I think good. We needed to get off the field a little bit more on defense, but we played really good defense when it mattered most, and we're able to get off the field. Defensively, if you look, they got the ball out of the quarterback's hands quickly, which was smart. It wasn't a whole lot of traditional drop back pass. I was impressed with that quarterback. The timing, the one throw he made to the tight end on the seam, that ball comes out way before the receivers even looking. So I was impressed with that. But the other thing they did is they were smart. I mean, you look, they had their tight ends chipping our defensive ends a lot. So I think to me that shows respect for our defensive line. And, I have a lot of confidence in that position and how they're being coached. And I think we're going to end up having a very productive year up front. That's going to allow our defense to have the type of success that we need to have.
Let's go to Mike Gross and
Hey,
Donnie
Mike.
Collins. You're on deck.
Hey, Mike.
Hi, James. How you doing?
Good, man.
This is just something I'm kind of curious about more than a newsy thing. The tight end position.
Did you say newsy?
Yeah.
Is that a word?
Well, news-ish.
Okay. Newsy and news-ish. I love it.
I'm glad to be of service in terms of
Love it.
language and stuff. Yeah.
What did you say? What did you say? No, but then after that, what did he say? Oh, yeah, good. East Stroudsburg psychology degree.
Yeah, I was an English major. There you go.
That makes sense then.
It does. It does. The tight end position. It seems like you make extensive use of that position, multiple tight end sets almost every week. But it seems to me like the way they get used from week to week changes quite a bit. They were a lot of that last week, but it for whatever reason, they didn't get targeted much in the passing game. So just talk about that. I'm just curious about that in general, how that works. Obviously, it's somewhat of an opponent-specific thing, but just how you're thinking about how to use the different ways that you use the tight end from week to week.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting discussion, not just the tight ends, but in general. And this is things that I think the media asks. These are things sometimes parents will reach out and ask about why, their son didn't get this many touches or why the ball didn't go to them. It's interesting because as a coaching staff, if you look at our notes on Sunday and Monday, it's how do we get the ball to Theo and Tyler. But the reality is, I think our production on Saturday shows that we want to spread the ball around. 9 people touched the ball. But what we're not going to do is we're not just going to force the ball to somebody if they're not open. We did have one specific route that was called that it's going to go to the tight end, and that's the primary throw, and we got sacked on that play. I think there was another throw to the tight ends that got batted down by a defensive lineman. But the reality is, it's like whether it's the running game, we're not just going to hand the ball off and run into a dead look. That's where the RPOs help you, right? So you're not running into a play that pre-snap, you pause the film and say, this run play has no chance to be successful. We're not just going to throw it to a tight end because we want to get them touches. I don't know what their plan was. It may have been to eliminate the tight ends as much as possible from the passing game. But I guess to answer your question, we have a plan to get the ball to our playmakers every single week. But then once you get to the game, you're going to take what the defense gives and not force the ball to any players. It's just not the right thing to do. And that's gonna equal sometimes you rush for 300 yards, other times you throw for 300 yards. That's going to also equate to some games where the tight ends get 12 touches, and there's going to be other games where the tight ends get 2 touches. It's just how the game plays out. And I think when you're a good offense, you have the ability to do that. When you're dependent on 1 or 2 guys or 1 or 2 positions, then you're easier to defend. So I hope that answers that question. But it's interesting that comes up a lot from a lot of different resources. But I can guarantee you, we go into it saying, Theo and Tyler specifically, those 2 guys have shown and earned the right to be a big part of our game plan, and they were.
We'll go to Donnie Collins and then Corey.
How are we doing, James?
Good. How are you, Donnie?
Pretty good.
What is that hat?
Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders.
Love it.
Yeah, it's sharp. But I know things don't change in the snap of a finger in football or any sport, but it's when Keandre has that kind of a game in the Rose Bowl. Have you noticed a change in him, not just on the field, but in the room, confidence-wise, and how he's able to lead the group in both ways?
Well, I think confidence is a real thing, and it's a powerful thing, right? There's no doubt about it. And I think, obviously, the way this season ended last year, we were able to build on it all spring, all summer, and now, obviously, you love, that he was able to start out really strong and then keep it going, and continue to build on it. So there's no doubt about that's a real thing. I'm probably just most proud of him in terms of his maturity, both on and off the field, his growth as a leader, his growth as a football player, his growth as a competitor, his steady, consistent approach, when it comes to, being a mature teammate and football player. I'm really proud of him. He is thriving academically. He's thriving as a football player. He's earned the respect of the locker room and the coaching staff. And it hasn't always been a smooth ride. I think he's a really good example for a lot of guys that you trust the process, you keep working, and at some point you're going to have that breakthrough moment, and it's going to turn for you. So I am proud of him. Me and his relationship, I think, is really good and really strong. Sometimes with guys like Keandre and a lot of the guys, they don't really get me when they first get here. I'll mess with them, and they can't tell sometimes when I'm kidding and when I'm not. And he's one of these young men. He really knows how to interact with the coaching staff and specifically with me. He knows there's a time and place for everything. And he's going to go on not only this year and have a really big year and be one of the better wide receivers in the Big Ten and in college football, but he's got a bright future, not just in football but in life, because he's learned really good habits while he's here, and he's embraced the program and he's embraced the process. And I will also say, going against guys like Johnny Dixon and Kalen King every single day at practice, iron sharpens iron. It's been impressive to watch those guys compete.
Corey Geiger and then Johnny.
Good afternoon, James.
Hey, Corey.
West Virginia's coach made some comments about the last-second touchdown. I wanted to give you a chance to, if you have any response to him, and what's your mindset of getting Bo some playing time and letting your guys run plays versus if you score late, maybe you open yourself up to some level of criticism?
Yeah, I guess everybody looks at it differently, right? For me, I believe that my responsibility in those type of situations is to get my twos in the game. But I think once those twos get in the game, then they deserve the right and the chance to play and compete. That's what I believe. I believe that from the opening kick to the last whistle, you compete and you play. Now, if you leave your ones in, that's a different story. Then you should change how you play. And you take knees and you run in situations that you normally wouldn't run in. That's different. But when your twos go in the game, those guys get limited amount of reps. They should have a chance to compete. And I believe that not just from a Penn State perspective. If we're ever in that situation, I see it the same way. This isn't me looking at it just from our view. I got a bunch of other things I could say, but I'm just going to leave it at that. That is my philosophy and our philosophy. I think when our two offense was in there against the majority of their ones, they have the chance to go compete. And I think Bo getting in there and being able to run the offense, they went to cover zero, which it's hard to run when you go cover zero. Bo should have the ability to check to our cover zero plan and have a chance to execute a play that has a chance to be successful against cover zero. And then should have a chance to score. So I'm comfortable with that. I can't do a whole lot more than that, and I'll leave it at that.
Johnny McGonigal.
Greg?
Yes.
Okay.
Comfortable.
I'm
Hey, James.
I'm coachable too.
Yes, you are.
How we doing?
Good. James, Daquan Hardy, Keziah Izzard, Amin Vanover showed up as out on that pregame availability report. Any of those players out for the year or a significant amount of time? And with Daquan out, what did you think of Cam Miller stepping in at nickel?
Yeah, so they are not out for the year. They are not out for the year. And Cam Miller, obviously his role will continue to grow. Johnny Dixon, we didn't play a whole lot of nickel last week. If we do, Johnny Dixon will take that role, and Cam will be on the field as well, obviously. But I think Cam is really kind of that guy who's, showing up a lot of different ways. Special teams defensively is going to continue to grow. He's a guy that I think is a lot like some guys that we've had in the past, like John Sutherland, where every single day this guy practices and meets and prepares like it's the Super Bowl. And he's going to maximize his time here at Penn State and have a really good career. And I think he's a really good example for young players on our program.
All right, we'll go to questions in the room. We'll start with Mark over here.
Thanks. Hi, James. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. To the extent that you can share, can you let us know what your message is to a guy like Sander after that kind of game, and the balancing act between letting him know that the job needs to be done, but also, I mean, you don't want to lose a kid after one difficult performance.
Well, it's interesting because you guys know I've done it with you guys, but I also have done it with our team, and he was here this past weekend. And I tell the Fickens story all the time, and not just for our specialists, but for our team. I think it's a really good example. I mean, I wasn't here his freshman year, but most of you that have been covering Penn State for a while, know that story better than me. But then, my first year on campus, I mean, Ficken couldn't have had a better year. And I just think it's a great example of, again, trusting the process, not getting too high, not getting too low. I will say this, Sander Sahaydak got up in front of the team on Sunday without me talking to him, without anybody talking to him. I usually end practice and I say something. He said, "Coach, I got something to say," and got up and just handled himself really well. I was really proud of him as a young man. Like if it was my son, very proud of him. As a member of this team, as a teammate, I just thought he conducted himself really well. I think he's earned everybody's respect, but I thought what he did right there and what he said did it even more. But I would also say, as tight as that competition was all camp, I don't think there was a shock by anybody on our team that when we made the change, because literally it was that close all training camp. But just like Falcons had to keep preparing because you never know when your number's going to get called, Sanders got to do the same thing. We haven't made any decisions at this point, but that's where all of them, as much as you can get them to do it, first team, second team, or third team better be preparing as if they're the starter, because it can change like that.
Audrey?
Hey, James.
Hey, Audrey.
What were your impressions after going back and watching it? How do you think Abdul Carter fared? Because obviously some of the things he does don't always show up on the stat sheet.
Yeah, I thought he flashed. Maybe didn't have the same type of production in the stat sheet that he's had before, but in terms of being a presence on the field, in terms of allowing us to execute the defense at the level that we want it to execute at, he allowed us to do those things. But I think you'll see his production, continue all season long, starting this week, just to continue to elevate. I know he's got really high expectations and standards for himself, and so do we. But trust me, we're glad he's in there, and we got to remember he's still a young player. Started as a true freshman, so he's still a young player who's growing and learning. But as we all know, Abdul's one of the best linebackers in college football.
Ben.
James, how's it going? I'm over here.
Hey, Ben.
Drew can clearly make throws that other people can't. And I wonder how you balance his ability to do things with the classical quarterback decision-making tree of don't throw across your body, don't throw off your back foot, these things that he can do differently than everyone else. How do you take advantage of that skill set while at the same time not turning him into a quarterback that does too much?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think it's a fine line, right? So I would say it's you maybe put it on a degree scale. So what I'm saying is, okay, maybe for most quarterbacks, if you're rolling to your right, you would say never throw back across your body with a crossing route. And I'd still say that is the general rule, but maybe that degree that he can throw is maybe a little bit wider grace period than you'd give for other guys. I still think in general, you don't want to roll to your right and throw way back across the field. But he may have a little bit more wiggle room on that because he's shown the ability to do it. So what we want to do is coach him in things that are time tested, but also not limit his ability to make special throws for our offense as well. So, it's a little bit like the KJ Hamler kickoff return against App State, right? Like, you shouldn't have brought it out. The coaching book said don't bring it out, and I'm on the sideline going, no. And then he makes somebody miss, and then the ball's on the 48-yard line, and you're, yes, and then we go down and score and win. So there's just a fine line to it, and for me to sit here and say that ability doesn't affect the rules for coaches and players, it would not be accurate. Ability plays a part in that.
Bob?
James, how are you?
Good, Bob. How are you?
I'm good. A question about two of your offensive guards. How did you think J.B. Nelson did starting at left guard? And I know that Venga, I think, played a lot at right guard. How did you think those two guys did?
Yeah, I thought J.B. played really well. He is a physical guy. We talked about it all training camp. Our defensive line talked about it all training camp. He is a physical dude who can play guard and tackle, so there's flexibility there. There's still a lot of areas where he can grow and get better, but he gives us a presence out there that I think we need. I think he was we do an offensive finisher of the week, and he won that award. In terms of Venga, we have a ton of respect for Venga. We think he's got a very, very bright future and think he did some really nice things while he was in there. I think there's still a ton of growth potential for Venga. And that's going to be kind of our challenge this year is how can we continue to get him as many reps as possible so that he's prepared to be a starter and can play like a starter whenever he's in there and whenever we need him.
In the back, Andrew?
Coach, back here at the back corner. There you go.
Thank you. Sorry, the lights.
Oh, I understand, Coach.
Challenging.
You've seen the tape now. What stuck out when you rewatched the game Sunday or Monday or whenever that you didn't notice on Saturday in person?
Yeah, I don't know if there was something like after the game that stood out to me that I was not aware of during the game. Sometimes that happens where it's like I didn't realize this. I think that the thing that probably was reinforced is I thought we were very efficient in the run game. I thought we were really good on first and second down. We had a chance for 2 or 3 explosive runs that would have dramatically changed the game earlier, and also would have really helped, obviously, Nick and Katron's stats. So I think we're close there. Most importantly, we're efficient, and if we're efficient in the run game, those guys they're gonna make their plays. They're both so good. So that probably stood out to me. I thought that during the game, but then you watch it and you watch the end zone cuts and the tight copy film, and you see there was some opportunities there for us. I thought defensively, what stood out to me is we played our best when it was needed most. There's some things that we got to get cleaned up for sure, but when we needed to make plays on defense, we did. So that was important. And then I think back to the point I made earlier is whoever's in the game, the standard's still the same. When we got a lot of those backups in the game on defense against mostly the ones of their offense, the expectation is to still play up to our standard of defense.
On the right, Tyler.
James, how you
Tyler.
doing? Going back to the offensive line, a couple linemen that we saw play last year, but kind of in different situations now. Hunter Norzad at center. Curious what your evaluation was of his debut in that starting role. And then Caden Wallace and his return to the starting role at right tackle.
Yeah, I think Hunter really had a nice camp. He's got some bumps and bruises right now that we got to get him healed up from, because I think he's one of the better centers in college football when he's 100% healthy, which in college football you're really very rarely, never 100%, but as close to it as possible. I think I've told you guys, I think Caden had a really good camp, and back to that iron sharpens iron, going against Chop and Adisa and Denai and those guys every single day at practice, I think is really valuable for both sides. But he's had a really good camp, and I thought showed that on Saturday as well. I think the biggest thing with Caden is consistency. He has shown flashes to be one of the better offensive tackles in the country. And this year for him and for us is about consistency. How many practices, how many days, how many drives, how many games, can he play at that elite level, which I think he's capable of doing.
Way in the back, T. Frank.
Straight back. How you doing, James?
Good. How are you, man?
Good. I have a quick preliminary question. Are you aware of, have you heard of the S2 cognition test before?
No, sir.
Okay, so aside from that then, Drew's ability to see the field, is it something that you've noticed from him? What is your assessment of his ability to recognize not just where routes are, but where guys are in space? And is it different than other guys you've coached before?
No, I would say there's been other guys like that in the past. I think where he is unusual for a young player with a pretty sophisticated playbook, I think he knows the stuff cold or knows the stuff pretty darn good, where when he gets into problems, he knows where to go with the ball. He can focus on the defense because he knows where everybody is going to be. The things that I think are what we just talked about is his ability to make some of the non-traditional throws. That and his poise. Because I think what happens is when you're not poised, you have a tendency to jump over reads and skip over progressions. Because your feet are antsy or because your eyes are antsy. And he's just so calm and poised that allows him to go through progressions and read defenders. And he doesn't hang on progressions. Sometimes young players, say you got a smash concept or a China concept, however you want to call it, with a corner route and some type of flat control. A lot of young quarterbacks, they want to throw the corner route. So they hold on to the ball waiting for the sexier route to come open rather than just going through your progression. Is he open? Is he open? Is he open based on the defender, the flat defender that we're trying to high-low, the curl flat defender that we're trying to high-low, the middle triangle that we've created, whatever it may be. And some young quarterbacks will hold onto the ball waiting for the sexy route to come open. So he doesn't do that. So that's where you're able to distribute the ball to 9 different receivers. That's where the defensive coordinator watches the film and says, God, we have to cover the entire field. Being able to throw the far hash out. I've always said that if you can throw the speed out to the field, it changes a lot of things on your offense because, again, that's where most college defenses, that's what they're going to give you. They're going to give you that wide field out or flat. And he can make that throw with ease, and when you do that, it opens a lot of other aspects of your playbook up.
Time for 2 more questions.
So there's a couple words about the weekend and then past weekend, and we'll talk about the Iowa State game, obviously. But first of all, it's good to get out on the field and compete. Have that opportunity, and it's, I think, interesting. Probably every team goes through it where everybody kind of has a clock going, an internal clock, and after a while, probably about 10 days out, I think everybody's anxious just to turnover to the season. So good to get out there. Obviously, it's a hot day. Great to play in front of fans, and just a lot of anticipation, anxiety, anxiousness, whatever it is. So good to get the first one out, that's for sure. And just certainly most importantly, happy to get the victory. Good starting point for us. And came in Sunday, just gave us a real opportunity to look at the film and hopefully learn from any errors that we made. Both physical, mental, and just maybe as much as anything, just understand the value of little details and things that, you're trying to, I think all coaches are trying to get corrected during the course of camp, but kind of reinforces some things. And then the other thing I mentioned, I think briefly after the game, just, the various swings in a game. And certainly we had some situations we could have responded to better on Saturday, and that's, if we're going to have a successful team, we're going to have to do a better job with that. So hopefully that's a learning experience on top of it. So all part of the deal. And, every Sunday is a real opportunity to learn, and then most importantly, hopefully grow as you move forward. So that's really the challenge that's in front of us right now. And, we're going to need to grow and improve fast because we have a tough contest on our hands playing Iowa State this week. So captains end up being the same four guys. We've got Joe Evans, you've got Luke Lachey, Jay Higgins, and Cade McNamara will be our captains. And then, needless to say, this is a rivalry game. It's a big game in our state for good reason, and rightfully so. I think it's really a good thing for the state, certainly, but with it comes a lot of intensity. It's going to be a great environment, certainly on Saturday, just like it is either in Kinnick or their place. So you can count on that, and I think the other you can count on just if you look at the last 5 games now, it's basically been 5 points per average between the two teams. So all the games have really been contested, and it comes down to playing good, clean football, and I'd expect something more of that this week. So again, a lot of talk, a lot of excitement around the state, I'm sure. And I think the key thing for all of us performers, the guys who are performing out there, the guys competing, coaches the same way, is just focus on what we can do to be best prepared, because that's what's going to take. So that's kind of where it's at. Their team looked good Saturday. They had a really impressive win over Northern Iowa, a team that we have a lot of respect for as well. Got a lot of new players, but I think something that didn't change. They just look very well coached. They play extremely hard, and they're very sound. No turnovers. They're a +2 on the turnover rate. Made some big plays that gave them a lot of juice out there, and helped lead them to their victory. So just an impressive football team. 2 new quarterbacks. They both played well. Got multiple receivers that are good football players. Looks like 4 or 5 backs that are really capable. A lot of tight ends, I think 4 or 5 that contributed and did a good job. And they're veteran up front, very strong up front. Defensively, they've been really good and stout. One of the top teams in their conference basically since 18. Have really been playing good on defense. And got a new kicker, had a really impressive field goal. Punter did a great job, and 2 big punt returns on top of it. So, they're doing a great job on special teams as well. So, all that being said, we just have a lot of respect for them, and it's like every year we're going to have to play at our best to have a chance to come out ahead on this thing. I'll throw it out for questions. Well, I'm sorry, we're on the road, but we still do have a kid captain, so I do want to mention Niall Crone, who is right from Iowa City here. Young guy's had 11 surgeries thus far, just started first grade, and as I'm told, now just lights up the room. So just want to wish him our best, and certainly we'll be thinking about him this weekend too, so great to have him.
Go
ahead, Sam. Yep, there you go.
After evaluating the play of the offensive line in the run game, was it a matter of mostly aiming points and missed opportunities more than it was physical errors that are beyond correction?
Yeah, no, I didn't see a lot of physical stuff. It just it was a tough preparation for us. Defensive, looking at their defense, I think their offense felt pretty good about what to expect. A lot of returning players, and then certainly the system that Coach Anderson has had with him for quite some time. It was kind of the flip of that on defense. We really didn't know what to expect, and got some looks maybe that I don't want to say we weren't prepared for, but there were some things we would have done differently maybe in retrospect had we known what to expect a little bit more. So all in all, I think they saw a lot of good things out there. Nothing that can't be improved upon and fixed, so nothing too bad.
Do you expect more production from the run game this week, considering you do know Iowa State a little bit better than what you expected?
Yeah, yes and no.
last week?
The challenge is they make it really tough to run, and they've done a great job of that. And it's kind of ironic. You think of the front, I think people refer to as a 3-3 stack. So you think of that being like a past spread offensive front, but they do a great job. They really do a great job of getting free guys to the ball. And the one thing about them, which I can say this the last 5 years, they really tackle well at all positions. And you can't say that about every football team. In fact, there's some that you can't say that about at all. But yeah, they've done a really good job of that. So they have a great way of getting guys free to the ball, and then they don't miss tackles.
Seems like pass protection took a step up. What do you think kind of led to that big jump from last year to this year?
Yeah, it's kind of like I've been saying. I just think we're a more mature group right now, a little bit more experienced and more capable, and it's really pretty much the same guys throwing Rusty Feth on top of it. But it's the same guys that have been here. They've been able to practice a little bit. They're a year older and stronger, and we're a more physically mature team at that position, especially. And I think that's a big part of that, especially line play, both lines. That's a really big factor.
Will it be a similar rotation for the offensive line this week as we saw last week with Ellsbury in at right guard?
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how it goes this week. But right now, if we're playing 5, 6, well, obviously we're playing 5, but 6, 7, 8 guys, we're doing it because we feel like they can go in and compete and play well, not because we're just trying to fish around or find something that might work. But I feel right now like the guys that you saw Saturday did a capable job, and hopefully they'll all continue to improve as we go.
Specifically about